You are listening to the Enormocast.
Yeah, Sportiva is losing its edge.
Losing its edge.
The mandala is losing its edge.
No edge.
No edge?
More fun.
More fun.
The kids are wearing them in France and in London. I was there when Keenan Takahashi tried on the mandala for the first time. I said, man, that's a heck of a mustache.
Ultra sticky.
I was the first one to tell the pad sniffers about the mandala. Smells like Skittles in here. I've never been wrong. I used to work in a climbing gym in 1997 in Southern California before most of you were even born.
The future has no edge.
I woke up naked on a crash pad underneath the Peabodys, only wearing a chalk bag and my mandalas.
Optimize performance.
Facilitating fluidity, minimal materials, sticky coated toe box, supreme grip.
No edge, more fun.
Listen, where you playing in town? You playing here?
We're doing the Enormo Dome, whatever it is. It's terrific.
Oh
It's
yeah,
a
big
house. We
place
sold
that
it out.
side of town. That's a
Very
big
nice.
place. You sold
What's
it
that,
out.
2006?
You really should.
The hell are you doing? I couldn't sleep. I'm checking the ropes. There was a frayed end on your rope, and I'm cutting it out.
Good weather, bad weather. Now or later, anytime. Good time.
Today's show is brought to you by La Sportiva
Arc'teryx Equipment.
and with support from Maxim Ropes. Maxim has been keeping the Enormocast off the deck since 2012.
And don't forget our charter sponsor, Bonfire Coffee. Go to bonfirecoffee.com and enter Enormo at checkout for a discount on great coffee and to support the Enormocast.
And now back to the show.
Hello and welcome to the Enormocast. This is your host, Chris Kalous. It is March 31st, 2026, about 12 noon here in Gulf Shores, Alabama. And this is episode 321 of the Enormocast, a conversation with dry tooling maestra, Katie McKinstry Stylos. That's right, folks. We get to peer into that niche within a niche that is the world of sport dry tooling. And yes, I am in Gulf Shores, Alabama, which might as well be Florida. And of course, I'm not here on a climbing trip because it's Florida. Even the closest climbing gym is 2+ hours away from me right now, and it's flat. But you know what? It's a vacation. I don't call climbing trips vacations. And especially you climbers that have families know what it's like to go on an actual vacation, not taking time off from work to go climbing. Vacation, beaches, sun, eating a lot. You'll start running, even if you don't run normally. I do run. I try to go a couple times a week, but I've been every day since I've been here. You hang on door jams. Do you guys do that when you're on these vacations? Just thinking like, oh, it'll keep me in shape or whatever. Your skin starts to fall off in the ocean. It's only like a week, but you're like, oh my God, I'm losing so much power. Power I didn't have to begin with. Just be another excuse that goes into the back pocket there for the spring. Also putting out content for you because the relentless march of content creation goes on. So since I'm sitting under the deck next to the pool, out of doors, I will get this thing done. Katie McKinstry Stylos. I talked to Katie up in Michigan in the UP on the shores of the Great Gitchigumi at the Michigan Ice Fest. And I'll tell you, this thing's quite an education. You guys are going to be raising your eyebrows just getting this intense glimpse into the world of what Katie does, which is, among other things, she's well known for her sport-style dry tooling, like no ice, just ice tools and things on your feet scraping up against rock. And we get into all the little details of what that means. I actually didn't really know that much about it, I'll be honest with you. It's a very niche sport within our sport, and there's niches within the niches. It's an enigma wrapped in a mystery, and we get into it here, and it's really fun. But Katie is much more interesting than just dry tooling. She had this whole previous life as a very intense competitive horse rider. She found climbing as a diversion to some hard times when her horse passed away and burnout set in. And then she slowly funneled herself into this very small and intense world of that upside down dry tooling. In a very short time, she worked her way up through the grades, becoming the first American woman to do this grade, the first North American woman to do that grade, and then finally, with her ascent of the route Parallel Worlds, became the first woman to climb what's either D15 plus or D16 minus, depending on who you ask. Either way, she was the first woman to crush that grade, which thrust her into the limelight. What the hell is a D grade? You're going to find out right here. This one was recorded face-to-face in a hotel room in Munising, Michigan, just like the good old days. Hotel room interviews on the Enormocast. All right, let's get her done. A conversation with Katie McKinstry Stylos. Hey folks, as you know, I parade my past dirtbag cred around on the Enormocast like I'm the king of the carnival and 4 Sazeracs deep. Toyota truck, months in the creek, thumbing around Australia, blah, blah, blah. But the truth is, most of us are part dirtbag at least part of the time. But even the most committed, ramen-powered 92 Camry-dwelling climber deserves gear that isn't held together by only deep desire and duct tape, and not even the good duct tape. If your current jacket looks like it's been used as a towel, a pot holder, and possibly a dog bed, it's time to level up. Arc'teryx makes gear for dirtbags who secretly want to be warm. For climbers who, quote, don't care about material things, but will get benighted trying to booty that welded totem. Born in the coast mountains of British Columbia, where the weather is basically a hazing ritual, Arc'teryx builds jackets that survive more abuse than your Sprinter's transmission. Well, that's not actually saying much, but you get the point. The Alpha Series, it's a shell to buy when you finally accepted that windbreakers are neither. The Atom, it's the mid-layer that keeps you warm, even when the library finally kicks you into the storm at closing time. And the Fit, so dialed your family will not roll their collective eyeballs when it's the one nice thing you have to wear to your sister's wedding. So stop pretending your seasoned jacket is a badge of honor, or at least leave it in the back seat when you actually gear up for something serious. And go to Arc'teryx.com or your local shop and allow yourself at least one nice thing in your life. You deserve it.
You know what's going on.
Yeah, right.
But if you're not in it, then I would totally understand you not knowing what's happening.
Cool. Yeah, we're started. Let's start. I'll introduce you separate.
Great.
But yeah, so I was listening to that podcast, the Ice Beta podcast, which I'd never heard before. But there's remarkably little media about you online. So I found that, and I'm like, okay, I don't actually usually listen to other podcasts that my guests do beforehand,
right?
Because then I'll feel like, oh, we're just covering the same stuff.
Yeah,
which is fine because I mean, different listeners, different podcasts. But it kind of infects the way I do my show.
Yeah, I can see that.
But we won't. I mean, I don't mind. We're going to go over a lot of the same stuff, obviously. But I was like, oh, I better listen to this thing. And then it was this whole education about what it is, the dry tooling world, what it is, which I felt like I was pretty informed about climbing. I mean, I try to pay attention. I'm like a media person.
Right.
I may not be as deep as some, but I was like, what is going on here? And you're using acronyms I never heard before and all this sort of stuff. So It's a pretty crazy small world, and like it's as niche or as it gets. And I feel like in some ways it's because off-withing has gotten so popular that it's like replaced off-withing as like, this thing that happens in the shadows somewhere.
Right.
Which I think off-withing used to be maybe 20 years ago. And the off-withers were very prideful about how it was like their small little thing that nobody else liked.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a broad way of asking, like, how did you get there? Like, how did you come into climbing, I think, in 2015, just as we all do in various ways, rock, ice, gym. And then
pretty quickly, maybe 4 or 5 years later, end up as this, or at least, start looking towards this crazy, primarily dry rock climbing with ice tools.
Yeah. No, I think that it's a niche within niche. It's like extra niche. So I understand what you're saying. But I started rock climbing as a way to like do something other than horse riding, because I rode horses for a lot of years and trained horses and worked on a barn. So it was like something we would go do at the end of the day to get away off the farm. So there was a tiny gym in Olympia, Washington that was like in a warehouse. It was literally called the Warehouse Rock Gym. And we would go. And that's where I started. But my now husband at the time was really into mountaineering. So he's like, we got to learn to ice climb. We got to do this so we can go do the big mountains. And I was like, yeah, cool, whatever. And long story short, the first time I ever went outside was ice climbing, not rock climbing. And it like totally blew my brain. I was like, this is crazy. This is insane that this is something you can do. So,
well, yeah, I think I heard you say like you were just had never thought that waterfalls would freeze.
No, it never crossed my mind.
And that's a really interesting way to look at it, because I don't think about it that way, but yeah, if you didn't know that, like a frozen waterfall is a very bizarre thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so when you think about like if you're in a completely different world, like think about like if somebody sat across the table from you and started talking about karate. I mean, maybe you know about karate or whatever, but like they start talking about it, you're like, I've never thought about that before. But if you're not in that world, then how would you ever know? Like, I've never thought about water. Water is something that comes out of the faucet and it rolls down into the ocean, whatever. Like, my world was horses. I never thought about water freezing and it getting cold enough. And so when somebody asked me if I wanted to go ice climbing, I didn't know what that meant. And then I'm off in the desert and it's dry. There's not an ounce of snow on the ground. And I walk around this corner and it's just this insane frozen waterfall that's like perfectly symmetrical of rock on either side of it, and it's very stark against this like black rock because a fire had rolled through the area like the year before, so all the sagebrush is burned and it's just insane. And I'm by myself because the people I was with like walked around to the top to set up a top rope, so it's like just me in this like very stark environment in something that I never thought I would be doing. So it had like a very impressionable moment on me, and something like I was like, oh, I'll never not do horses. So for me to like find myself in that spot, in that place, was a very like life-changing, road-changing moment for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting that you can pinpoint that. I like that.
Yeah.
Those things, these like revelatory moments that you'll have in your back pocket.
Right.
Versus like, oh, I went to a birthday party at a climbing gym and then went back a couple times and like, but you had this moment. Where was it?
It's called Hidden Falls.
Okay.
Just outside of Boise, a ways, like in really close to the Idaho-Oregon border, like in the desert out there in the Waihees. And it doesn't really freeze much anymore because it's warm there all the time now. But I vividly remember like passing Chicken Dinner Road to get there. I don't know what road you turn down now to get to, but like I remember passing like Chicken Dinner Road to get there, and it's kind of a walk and whatever, but it was cool. So, and it's doesn't really form anymore.
Right. Mm-hmm. So let's dip into who you were in this moment. You mentioned the horses.
Yeah.
And I always like these kind of things when someone comes on the show and starts talking about another world that I have no idea about, really.
Yeah, totally.
And you were riding horses competitively. Mm-hmm. What discipline?
Yeah. So what I did was called 3-day eventing.
Okay.
It's like the horse triathlon. So it's over 3 days. And at the end of the weekend, lowest score wins. So every day gets combined at the end, and whoever has it's like golf kind of thing. But the first day is dressage. So you're in an arena. Everybody does the same test. Who does the test the best, most accurate, whatever, gets a score. And that's
these are like dressage, which I know a little bit about, but
sure,
it's like doing maneuvers and jumps, like very precise kind of
things.
No
jumps in the dressage ring. Okay. It's all just like on the flat, all in the sand arena. Like it's like different speeds and circles, and like the idea of it. So to go down the rabbit hole, eventing started because they had all these cavalry horses that they weren't using in war anymore. So it was like a way to like show off your cavalry horse and how trained it was and like how well it could move across the field and whatever. So dressage is a way to like show how trained your horse is. And then the next day is cross country, and you're like galloping in open fields, jumping over natural obstacles. So logs and water and ditches and banks and that kind of thing.
And that's what all little girls dream of is the cross country.
Maybe the crazy girls. Like it's like high adrenaline, really dangerous.
I know, but when you're like 7, you don't know that. You just imagine you and your horse with the hair, with the air flowing through
exactly
through your long hair.
Yes.
And,
that was me. I was like, I just want to go fast and jump and ride my horse.
Yeah.
And then the last day is like back in the arena, jumping over jumps that fall down. So if you like hit a rail, it's called show jumping. But if you hit a rail, you know, there's 4 points added to your score kind of thing. So it's a sport of accuracy, agility, speed, the whole thing. And it's like dangerous and awesome and fun all at the same time. So
yeah, I mean, the thing about the adrenaline is interesting because I don't think anybody thinks about that too much. But I do because I have sort of a pretty primal fear of horses.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go up and pet one or whatever, but I'm not that interested in riding on them.
You're not alone in that fear. And it's not that
big,
far off.
It's kind of big, you know? I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah, that's a safe fear to have.
Yeah. So, but, I mean, you lived this. Like I mean, you went to or you were homeschooled so you could be riding these things. So tell me about that because it shows like, I mean, from 12 or 13 on, you were like just in it.
Yeah. So I first started riding when I was 7. And my mom specifically chose English because it was a sport that wore helmets versus like Western riding where they're just wearing like the cowboy hat kind of thing. So my mom was the one who like sent me off on this thing because I was the horse girl who wanted to do it. And she helped it happen because I lived in a subdivision in a neighborhood. But I loved it and I wanted to do more of it. So as a little kid, we couldn't afford more than like one lesson a week. So I would go out to the barn and I would pick rocks. So my job, I was like a little 8-year-old girl, like with a bucket, like picking rocks in the arena. And then I would go dump the rocks in the pile. And that's how I would like pay off more lessons. And so from like a very young age.
Did you have to wear a striped suit? Because it sounds like sounds like one of these cartoon
Yeah, actually
prisons,
it was prison. Yeah, well, it turns out later on in life, I was told by my therapist that maybe it was like, you know, bad to be worked as a small child that way, but you know. But yeah, so I did that. And then when I got older, I wanted to do it all the time. But to do it all the time, I had to be a working student, which basically I worked from, I stopped going to regular school. I worked from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock at night. And I would show up to the barn and I would start the day and pick stalls and get horses ready for my trainer to ride. And I would ride horses all day. And, you know, we'd work all day and then I'd feed horses at the end of the day and I'd go home and I'd come back and do it all over again. And I would just do that every single day. But I would go home and I would do school after I would work all day kind of thing. So I started doing that when I was 13. And then I did that until I stopped doing it when I was in my 20s. So
wow.
Yeah, but we were traveling all the time in the summer, like going to California and Utah and Washington and Montana to these really big international events and like taking horses and getting horses off the track and that weren't good race horses and like retraining them to be 3-day eventing horses, and eventually got a job in Washington working at a barn up there, like managing the barn and riding horses and teaching lessons and the whole managing people and horses and schedules and vets and everything. Like that was my everyday. And you were lucky if you were like getting a day off. Like if there's anybody that's listening that's a horse person, they know 100% what I'm talking about. Like your life is horses. There's no, like if you have horses and you want to do horses, there's no happy medium. You're either doing horses or you're not doing horses.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you kind of just skipped the whole like traditional growing up and going to high school and all those sorts of things.
Yeah. No, I didn't do anything. I didn't do prom. I didn't graduate with like a class. Like I remember going to like a very stark building when I graduated when I was I think I was I can't even remember. I was like either newly 17 or I was 16, and I like walked in because I graduated early and like to a Stark building and took my test and had a diploma, I guess, like I was like, okay, I guess I'm done. Like at the end. And then I'm pretty sure I took the test in the morning and then I went to the barn and worked for the rest of the day kind of thing. Like I like took the morning off to like go take my test or whatever.
And you went and shoveled shit.
And then I went and shoveled shit. I'm really good at shoveling shit. I can clean 12 stalls in a couple hours. I got you. Yeah.
So we got to get to the climbing, but I'm really interested in this because, there's like this competition thing that happens, for a lot of different disciplines.
Mm-hmm.
And climbing is now one of them.
Yeah.
And, talking to competition climbers that kind of lived a similar life of like, that's it. I don't have time for... I don't have time for boys, girls, whatever it happens to be. I don't have time for drinking out behind the 7-Eleven or all the things, that you do. A lot of people do growing up. This is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And it has good fallout and has bad fallout and sometimes. But let me ask about your I don't know if both parents or just your mom, but encouraging you, wanting you to live your dream, but also like, were they also kind of like, wow, she's going heavy. Like, did they ever have a chat with you about like that kind of thing of like, is this really healthy or are we just doing this?
Yeah, I don't ever remember having a chat. I just vividly remember.
It really changed their lives too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't ever remember having a chat. I just vividly remember being like, this is what I'm doing.
Right.
Like me being small and being like, well, this is what I want to do and this is what I have to do it.
God,
because
amazing.
My parents we weren't financially in a place to be like, we can afford 5 lessons a week and we can send her to school and it's super expensive.
Yeah.
So for me to do that and get 5 lessons a week, that means I had to work 60 hours a week at the barn as a 14-year-old to be able to like live this dream that I wanted to do, which was ride horses competitively and professionally. And my parents didn't know anything about horses. So to them, this was like, oh, this is normal. This is normal. Like, this is what the trainer says is normal and this is fine and no big deal. Like, my parents were beyond supportive in the sense that, like, this is what was expected to be in this position of, like, what I wanted to do. And in hindsight, it's like, I look back at it, I'm like, no way. No way was that, like, a healthy thing to be doing as, like, a teenager. Absolutely not. Like, it's, like, caused me a lot of mental issues as an adult. But like, how would like, if I think about it, like, if I didn't know anything about something and like my kid or whatever really wanted to do that thing, I would also do everything I could in my power to support them to do it.
Right.
So my parents were just along for the ride just as much as I was.
Have you talked to them about this? Because they might be listening.
Yeah, we've talked about it for sure. Good. Yeah,
but she forgives you guys.
No, I don't think anybody's I don't think anybody's in the wrong. Nobody did anything wrong.
I was gonna be like, you don't forgive them. All right.
No. It's I love my parents and I wouldn't have changed a thing.
Right.
They were 100% supporting me in what I wanted
That's
to do.
what they did. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's only in retrospect that maybe that was a little hardcore.
Yeah, but it's not their fault.
No.
It's more in regards to like me being like looking back and seeing what would have been an issue would have been the trainer should have been like, hey, probably shouldn't be using her for child labor. Like that's on them, not my parents.
That's so funny. I mean, you're not very big, so you probably were just like the tiniest little thing with a little bucket of rocks.
Well, 2 buckets.
2 buckets of rocks.
Yeah, no, you're not walking around with 1 bucket, Chris. God forbid you have 1 bucket. It is 2 buckets. You have 2 hands. You have 2 buckets.
Anyway, you don't want to carry 1 bucket.
I would have been kicked out on the street if that was 1 bucket. Like, it's 2 buckets. Every horse girl is getting triggered right now.
I know it.
We've all lived the same childhood.
I just have this mental image of, just like lonely feeling deep inside. You're out there just picking rocks. Clunk,
that was me.
Clunk.
And this
clunk.
is like, this is like pre your Apple phone and like, your headphones and stuff. This is like me out with like no CD player. Like,
all right. So, It sounds like it was actually a bit tragic, though, the way you ended up moving on from the horses. So we just had a good laugh.
Yeah.
But just tell me, is far as you want to go, is in terms of what happened to put sort of, put an end to this run of being a horse person.
Totally. Yeah. The run of what my identity was, really.
Right.
Big reason I moved to Washington was because I ended up getting like disowned by my barn family at the time.
Okay.
They wanted to go in a different direction. I mean, I had given everything to these people, and they were kind of like, we're going in a different direction, like, bye. And my horse that I had bought, it was like my first horse. It was a big deal that I had gotten this horse. We paid like $3,000 for him off the track, which in regards to buying a horse is nothing. Not even, I think it was like maybe 300. I'm saying 3,000. I think it was like 300. But either way, we paid little amounts of money for him. He was like my dream. I'd met this horse and like he was everything to me. And like I say that to somebody who's not a horse person, but like soul.
No, I get it. I actually get it.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about that when I was hearing about this.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about, we talked about that whole cavalry thing. You're talking about these connections to horses that are, they're mythological in terms of the sort of literature around horses and people and
right.
Yeah. No, I mean,
100%.
It's actually probably like almost more than human connection.
It's hard to explain. Yeah, exactly.
Because you have to cross this like longer barrier.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I'd gotten this horse. He had gotten hurt. And so it was a combination of like, I was getting disowned by my family. I literally had spent more time with these people than I had spent with my actual family. They had raised me, like everything. And I was like, they were leaving me behind and I was trying to find where the hell I was going to go at 17. So I find a job listing in Washington and pack myself up in my horse, and my dad and my mom drive me to a small town in Washington, and I move in and trying to find my way as like leaving home and managing a barn and managing horses and everything kind of by myself as like a teenager, but doing something that felt very adult at the same time. And it was really lonely. It was like, it's a 240 acre property and I'm there kind of doing the horse thing by myself. And anyways, my horse had gotten hurt before I had left, and the injury had left him neurologic. So basically like he'd broken his neck in the pasture, but we didn't know it because he had like paralyzed a nerve over his shoulder, which had hidden the injury. And when his neck healed, the scar tissue like closed on his spinal cord. So he started losing feeling in his hind legs. And it was like a progressive, terrible thing. And then when I was 18, was like sitting in the vet and they're like, yeah, and I knew, right? Like I saw the x-ray and I'd spent enough time around horses to like look at the x-ray and be like, yeah, he's done. And so had to put him down, which was terrible. I'm like 18 years old, like making the decision to put my horse down, who was 6 years old. Like this was a 6-year-old, beautiful, like picturesque horse. Like you almost wish that he would have like fallen and just broken his leg in the field and had this like traumatic thing in front of you, because it would have been easier than like looking at this beautiful animal and being like, yeah, it's like, I have to put you down. So putting him down was, it like shattered my soul. And I didn't even realize it at the time. It was like 2 huge blows in a row of like losing my barn family. And then I had like tried to pick myself up and I'm like, well, at least I have my horse. I'm going to like move to this state and I'm going to like do these things and I'm going to have my horse. And then I had to put my horse down, and yeah, it was terrible. And so then I was there, and anybody who's in Washington, it's just like rains and it's sad. It's lonely. And I like had lost everything that mattered, everything to me all at the same time. And then, yeah, I like didn't really realize it, but that was like the straw that broke the camel's back of like, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to put myself in a place to lose more horses. And I'd been around people who like, turns out horses are really fragile, and losing a horse is not an uncommon thing. Putting horses down is not an uncommon thing, especially in a high risk sport where accidents happen. And So yeah, I decided that I didn't even like, there wasn't a moment I decided to leave. It was just a very slow micro steps out of it until one day I just all of a sudden wasn't a horse person anymore. And I've done a lot of therapy to like deal with the loss of that identity and, you know, an acceptance of a new identity, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes total sense. But it took a few years.
It did. Yeah. It took I think the process between, so I had lost my horse. I put him down in 2014. And I think the last competition I did in the last year of competing I did was like 2017 or 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there was some overlap with climbing as well.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah. Yep. Because by that point, like I had met my husband on this farm.
Say it was overlap with meeting your future husband as well.
Yeah, exactly. I'd met him on the farm. He was there when I put my horse down. Like he was the one who buried my horse. Like he was there for like the whole thing. So he really has seen me through the transition of like who I was to like who I am now. He's the one that like took me climbing because I think he could see how completely lost I was. And I was like trying to make it work because that was like who I was supposed to be. So he's like, well, let's go do something else. Let's go see if you like something else. And I did. So, and then we started climbing and we like had gone on a climbing trip to like New Zealand, I think right after I'd finished my last competition or something. So we had that climbing horse crossover definitely was happening during that time.
Wow, that's interesting. I mean, you know, you could have gone and played ping pong or you could have like taken up anything, but you found climbing.
Yeah. Well, I think more than anything was just like, I love, you know, at that time I was not so much of like a sport climber or like going to the gym or whatever. It was like, we're going to go walk up this hill. You know, it was like the mountains were really healing for me. Of like, I didn't know what I was doing or where I was going, but like getting away and off the farm and like somewhere else was really what I needed. So, and that's how kind of climbing came from that of like, let's go outside, let's go walk up to Camp Muir today in shoes that are not appropriate or whatever, you know, like I don't have any of the right gear, but we're just going to go outside, get off the farm. So.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, and it sounds, like you were in both, had a foot in both worlds. But at some point you jump fully into climbing. Yeah. And then, you know, I'm kind of like thinking about this horse obsessed girl, this very determined girl that becomes a very determined woman. You know, I'm going to be this horse person. And this is what, I mean, the rock picking thing is still like the linchpin of all this, right? And, you know, at some point you start to bring that kind of focus to climbing. Yeah, tell me a little bit about that when it became something more than just like this diversion from this other thing. Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint like an exact moment. Well, the evolution then. Right, yeah, because even like post I'm out of horses, I still kind of worked in the industry. Like I worked helping organize some horse events. Yeah, it's like your skill set. So, like I knew the community. Like that was my community. So it was really hard to leave it. And then at some point I got a job at the climbing gym in Boise and I wanted to like, you know, I was like kind of moving around. Like Joe and I were really nomadic. He was nomadic and so I became nomadic because I kind of followed him around. And like I was originally from Boise, Idaho. So I had like gone back to Boise to live with my parents and was like, oh, I bet I can get a job at the climbing gym. Got a job at the climbing gym and kind of was more immersed in more of a community there. And that's kind of when it started to like become more of a climber because I started to build more of a community to the point where like we lived in my 99 Suzuki Grand Vitara and did like a climbing trip together and like 6 months lived in this little car and like drove around and rock climbed and then lived in it while we were it was the winter. We got into ice climbing and that's when we came to the Michigan Ice Fest for the first time. We like found a parking lot and like slept in the car and like went to all the evening events and just were psyched. And so it was a gradual process of getting more psyched on it and then got even more psyched on like goals and stuff after having done some ice climbing, but wanted to get stronger, but didn't necessarily want to take the risk that hard ice climbing is.
So got into dry tooling that way because I wanted to get stronger, and met Kevin Linlaw, who was a really, really strong, really psyched dry tooler and who had been trying to get me into it. And he was the catalyst to like all of a sudden finding something that was like, I got really psyched on and was like, I have goals now again. Because really I had like some ice climbing goals, but it wasn't until I got into the dry tooling that like the goals were like, you can't tell me no. You can't tell me no. Like, I'm going to do this kind of thing. That's when I had that feeling again that I hadn't had since I was doing horses. So it took a long time to get there, or it felt like it took a long time healing wise, I think.
Well, we were just talking about how like the horse thing, or at least what you were doing. What was it called again?
3-day eventing.
Right. You know, there's a lot of risk in that we're kind of not perceiving if we're not in it.
Right.
You know, was sort of the risk averseness in terms of like, well, if I get, because I mean, the whole thing about ice climbing, if you're ice climbing or doing that kind of stuff, is a lot of times the harder it is, the riskier it is. Mm-hmm. It's a little like aid climbing that way. Maybe kicking onto pillars, or you know, that could break off, or things like that.
Totally.
Was there an assessment about risk that kind of was left over from the risks that you took as a competitor horseback riding?
It's hard to say that I felt the crossover. I mean, I feel crossover with horses, funny enough, but I don't feel necessarily a huge crossover with risk. It's more just, I just had like a deep feeling of like, I don't want to climb a freestanding or like free hanging pillar.
Right.
You know, I don't want to do that. Like, I want to climb, I feel really good, like risk wise on like a good day on a WI5. And that's kind of like where it taps out for me.
Okay.
You know, I don't have these big desires to go do these crazy things on these free things that are like, well, you're not going to put a screw in because it probably is going to fall down. Right. And if it falls down with you, then, you know, you don't want the screw in to pull you down. Right. Like, that's way too, that's not my cup of tea. I don't want to die in the mountains. I don't want to take that kind of risk. So it was a way to climb on bolts, but be on tools. That's why I was psyched on it. So I was like, I could push myself while also having the safety of bolts.
So tell me a little bit about like the transition, looking up at these sort of steep free hanging draws, kind of, and sort of thinking you can do that, because it's pretty audacious, you know, aside from the risk. You know, everybody can be like, well, it's bolted, who cares? You can just fall off. But of course, ripping tools out and knocking your amazing teeth out or whatever. I complimented her teeth earlier before we started the show. It's got a great smile.
Thanks, Mom and Dad.
Yeah. She said there was a lot of money put into those bad boys. But, you know, there is this like audacity to it that I find still pretty compelling. So tell me about that feeling of like, well, I think that this looks like something I can do, moving from ice, because not a lot of people do, actually.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Everybody ends up scraping their tools around on some rock once in a while, but we're talking about like, you know, the big steeps.
Yeah, the big steeps. I like that. Yeah, I think that transition and the thought of being able to do it came from other people first. So my mentor, Kevin Linlaw, like, I worked with him in the gym and he was like, you should just try this. But I didn't really, funny enough, like, I really didn't like mixed climbing. I didn't like dry tooling, like going out and like, especially in highlight, the rock is just chossy and kind of scary. And it was not, I really enjoyed the security that ice, funny enough, right? Ironically, but ice climbing felt really secure compared to dry tooling. And it wasn't until I got into the gym, like a dry tooling gym, that I was like, oh, when I'm in the roof, the holds are like secure, you know? And when I'm on the wall, the holds feel a lot less secure. But it was also, I didn't just go outside and climbed into the roof and did that. Like it took me to go into a much smaller, much more secure place that I felt safe to be able to like want to try to do that. And then you go upside down and your brain is not meant to be upside down, and it's very confusing. And then it takes a long time to kind of orient yourself. But all of a sudden when you orient yourself, it's like the world it becomes a completely different world. And yeah, I just did it more and more to the point where I was belaying Kevin on a project in Highlight where he goes upside down into the cave, into the big steeps. And I had been doing some stuff in the gym with him. And I was like, well, there's no reason that I couldn't try to do it outside after having done it inside. So it wasn't, again, it wasn't this like big revelation of like, oh, this is for me. Right. It was like micro moments of encouragement and also like feeling safe enough to try to do something new.
Well, it seems like, meeting Kevin obviously was integral to this access, actually. Mm-hmm. We were talking in the beginning about how it's the niche within the niche, right? And those communities can be psyched that somebody wants to do it with their little crew, or they can oftentimes be sort of like, insular.
100%.
And like, this is our thing. And I think Off-Put thing was like that for a long time. And there was even pushback against, these, I've talked about this a bunch on here about, these women that kind of broke it open, actually. Mm-hmm. There's pushback up in Vedavu and places like that from the olds, Yeah. What was your experience? I mean, with both sides of that community?
Yeah.
Kevin is noted as someone who's open to growing teams and mentoring, and he learned that from Marcus Garcia.
Yes.
That kind of thing. And so he's a real conduit. But what was your feeling as far as, in Bozeman too? It's Montana. Like,
right.
First rule, you don't talk about climbing in Montana, right?
I know. Yeah. Funny enough, though, it's like it's a small enough sport, and especially when I was starting it with Kevin, I think there was like 3 people using the gym. So it's not like there was a kind of a community there to say like push me out. Like there really just wasn't enough people to be like no. Right. And maybe it would have been different in like Colorado or something. I don't know, because I've never
I'm projecting this. So
sure, right.
Exist at all.
But maybe that like it's a good example of where the sport is at. Like there's just not enough people doing it to like create a barrier to say no to you. So I didn't necessarily feel pushback until honestly later on, until I was kind of more of established dry tooler. But in the beginning there was no, and there still is no. I'm like micro moments of pushback like later on kind of thing, but not in the beginning at all. So yeah, it's been only open arms and willingness to share and learn. Like we've been learning together. When I started with Kevin, he learned from Marcus, and then Kevin and I started training together, and every training cycle has been a throwing ideas back and forth with each other and our people, like Joe and our other friend, Joe Wagner, and like who've done these trips together, being like, oh, well, what if we try this? Or like, we heard that this training thing was kind of working for this person or this community. Like, what if we tried to add this? And what if we split into 2 different, like this has been a learning thing that we've all kind of been on this journey together. And I just happened to come in on it a little bit later.
What's the deal with this gym?
Yeah, so it's it's part of a larger gym called the Mountain Project, funny enough, in Bozeman. And they focus on pure mountain sports, and they're kind of hardcore. And Kevin met the owner, whose name is Mike Wolf, and he is an awesome, supportive guy. And he had a tiny little like 12 by 12 corner in the gym that wasn't being used. And Kevin's like, hey, would you be okay if I built like a dry tooling Woody back here? And he's like, yeah, do whatever you want. Mike's like, I'll buy holds and you can build the structure. And now it's like this little 12 by 12. It's literally smaller than the big part of this hotel room. Is the catalyst to some of the strongest dry toolers in the world. This little tiny access room, it's just sweet.
How common are those in the U.S.?
Not crazy common, but they're more common now. Like there's like, I think personal like Woodies are getting like, they're more common now. Like people have them in their garages or in their basements or whatever. But like a gym that people can come into and climb, I don't think are crazy common. And oftentimes I think the issue is having enough money to keep it open because it's not a common sport. So
I guess this model of like having it as a part of a larger thing is what would work.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not bringing money into the Mountain Project. Like this is a
Right.
side thing that is just here for a niche community that Mike's been generous enough to give us a tiny little space to use, you know, and like the gym is happening and the music is like, you know, blaring and they're, you know, crushing on the gym side. And right next to that, while it's happening, people are like hanging in the roof, like climbing, you know, we're in there training while they're also training to like go ski hard mountains and Nordic skiing and everything. Right. So that's the only reason it works so well. And we're able to have it is because there's another avenue of revenue for the gym.
Well, it seems like a really powerful physical sport. What about that with your body and like taking to it? You know, you hadn't been in a sport that would necessarily prioritize upper body strength. You obviously would, you know, do some sort of fitness for riding. But it seemed very different. I mean, how was that revelation of your body sort of working for this particular sport?
Yeah. I mean, funny enough, when I was doing horses, I was young and there was no time to train.
I thought that exact thing when I said that. I was like, yeah, like when?
Yeah, like I wasn't training me.
She's
I mean,
carrying
I think
rocks
like,
and then she's going to school.
Yeah,
and then
like,
she's maybe sleeping for a couple hours.
Right. I think that like, you know, pro equestrians and stuff train because they have people working for them, right? But I was not training.
Right.
But what I was training was horses.
Yeah.
You know, we had horses on training cycles and we're doing the whole thing in prep
So you're
for
just like, I'll
competitions.
just be the horse.
It literally, there's so many parallels.
Right.
Like it's just training muscle, whether you're a horse athlete or a human athlete, like those crossovers are real. So it was funny because like I literally was bringing in my horse knowledge of like, oh, well, what if we tried this for endurance? Or like, how about this? What about this kind of schedule? Like this worked when we did it for the horses kind of thing. But I mean, initially it was mostly just kind of endurance, like being able to like just hang long times in the roof. And then eventually the routes were getting hard enough that for me, like the power has been really hard, like getting strong and like doing these big moves later on in the route. Like that's where I feel like I'm really good at endurance. I can hang on for a really long time. But like the power, that's been hard. That's been hard to train. So really leaning on Kevin and kind of the guys that are good at the power to be like, how do I do this? Because there was not like a woman there to be like, this is how women athlete dry toolers, you can do it. Like, so I'm like, okay, I guess I'll ask the people that kind of know how to do it. And yeah, it's been a learning process, but I'm still like, I have goals coming up in the future that are going to require even more power endurance and trying to come up with ideas to like get stronger in the power endurance and stuff later on. So there's still a lot of question marks, but it's more, it's been endurance mostly and just figuring it out as we go.
So you get into these upper, I mean, I'm reading numbers. They're throwing numbers at me whenever I read about you, with letters next to them.
Yeah.
So, and it's kind of wild because obviously I know all about crossing over, you know, different countries, grading scales to, you know, the French to the YDS to all that stuff. And then I run into these and then there's M's and there's D's.
Yeah.
And there's DTS, there's Yaniro, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got it.
I literally had a text with Katie yesterday, like, so you said DTS, what does that mean? I thought that's what it meant, but then I didn't know what it means, like
totally
overall. But I mean, you're starting to encounter these super high tech climbs. How are you sort of in your mind interfacing with like the nuance of it, in terms of like there's rules and there's styles and there's ethics? Like, tell me a little bit about your eyes kind of opening up, and was that appealing to you, these little nuances that go with the sport?
Yeah, I mean, I think like anything, it was gradual. You know, I didn't really know about it until I was doing, like I learned how to, so it's so nuanced. But yeah, like I'm a Yaniro climber, which means I do figure 4s, figure 9s. I put my leg over my arm when I'm in the roof and I'm dry tooling.
Hold on. Do you know why that's named after Tony Yaniro?
Because he did it in rock climbing.
Oh, okay.
He was the first, like a Yaniro is a move in rock climbing.
Okay.
And you'll occasionally see people in the rock climbing world do it.
I have never seen that.
Oh, it's occasional. It's not a common move.
Okay.
The dry toolers have really just hung on to this and we're like, yes, this is the move.
Yeah.
But it also, I mean, just being a Unero climber means that you use figure 4s, figure 9s, but
Okay.
you also put your feet out and use the rock when
Sure.
the move makes sense to use it or
And the
whatever.
opposite is DTS.
The opposite is DTS, which stands for dry tool style. And that's like hard no, never figure 4, figure 9. Feet are only allowed to be out on the rock or dangling below you like
Okay.
a monkey or whatever. And
Now, did this come up because I talked to Katie before this show. I was like, if I put you on the spot too hard to try to explain your sport, I'm like, just tell me to stop and I'll talk to somebody else that cares more about it. Because I think you're a little ambivalent about these things.
okay, yeah.
In terms of like the hard,
Sure.
these hard lines between styles. But did this come up because people thought it was cheating?
A little bit. I mean, I don't know 100%
Right,
exactly
right.
why people are so upset about it, but I think
And by
it's
people, we're talking a handful of people.
a handful. I mean, God, this sport is so tiny,
Smile, yeah.
really, really tiny. And in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It really, truly doesn't matter. And it's, I don't know, it's not that big of a deal. Right. And it's whatever. So it's like, yeah, there's kind of this hard line, but I feel like Unero climbers are way more like, well, whatever style you want to do, cool. Like if you want to climb the route with no Uneros, no figure 4s, that's whatever, cool. You want to use your feet, great. If you want to put yourself in a 4, awesome. And it's kind of the DTS climbers are kind of the ones that are like, this is the most pure, which is so ironic. This like pure, as we're like using tools on rock and whatever. But it shouldn't. The problem is it's so tiny and it's so small, and it's such kind of an unfortunate division that it really stunts the sport. It stops it from growing because it creates this gate you have to pass through, and it puts up a roadblock, and it's unfortunate. And really, it just needs to be like, yeah, dude, come and try it. What works for you? What's your strength? Like everybody is different, and everybody's, whether you're tall or short or upper body strong or lower body or strong core, whatever, like it should just be able to be what style you're doing. That's the style you should go for.
Right. You gave me an analogy, and I don't think it's as hard a line, but the whole knee bar thing in rock climbing a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Although that's sort of going away.
Yeah.
But I come from a place where knee bars have always been accepted. So
sure.
But yeah, that's a little bit of a good analogy. But I had no idea this was going on, and it's pretty wild because I just assumed, like, every time you see a picture of like, wow, there's this steep thing, there people are doing the figure 4. So I didn't know there was this thing. But as I started to get it, I'm like, oh yeah, I know. We've been down these roads.
Yes.
In all the disciplines about
history repeating itself.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but the other thing is like, and historically, and you may not even know this because it's a little ways in the past, but they've had their heel spur debates, and I think it was Ben Firth up in Canada who slung a folding chair in the middle of some whatever roof and hung it from his tools and sat in it, like to kind of prove a point about like, well, what are the rules, kind of a thing.
Absolutely.
So I mean, and climbing needs rules.
Sure.
The free climbing, we have the rules like that go with that. Like you're allowed to hang on the belay.
Yeah.
But you're not allowed to hang on gear. There's like, it seems like it's like obvious to us, but it's because we've been doing it for long enough that these are the rules, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, you were encountering this sort of stuff. But I mean, tell me a little bit about your progression, because we're kind of doing this a little chronologically. We're jumping around a bit, but if there is press about you, it's about climbing these high grades, particularly in Europe. So how do you start to feel yourself? I mean, what's your first sort of hard project? Because that's the other thing that you said, something that, is again sort of obvious, but I hadn't internalized, is that you don't project ice climbs.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, duh. I mean, you may try them more than once, but it's going to be a new climb. It's going to be different. Even the second time you go up, it's different because you've put some holes in it that you 100%. Can now use. So it's not really a sport that involves red pointing in the in the sense of the way we do it in sport climbing.
Right.
But we've brought all that sport climbing stuff to dry tooling.
Yeah.
Yeah, and projecting. So tell me about like the first time you figured out that I should project something. Mm-hmm. Because that's a big step in rock climbing too.
Yeah.
You know, you're sort of farting around, mostly trying to on-site stuff. Or try it a couple times in a day. But
yeah,
there's a step, you know, and it's to the dark side, in my opinion, when you're like, I think I'll try this more, you know, I'll come back next weekend and try this again.
Yes.
You know, and then months later, you're like,
totally.
I'm still trying and I thought I could get it, you know, whatever. Yep. So talk about that, like stepping over into being a project climber on these things.
Yeah, I think the real big moment was when Kevin invited us to go to Italy with him. And I was like, okay, well, what are the routes there? He's like, well, they start at like D8, but he's like, you really should go there for like the roof routes and like go there for the roof climbing, which, you know, D12 is where it kind of starts, but and then it goes up from there. Well, I was like, okay, like I've never climbed. I no idea what that feels like. And so all we did was just like climb in the roof in the gym and just climb. And like I had belayed Kevin on a project in the Bingo Cave in Highlight, and he'd put up like a 13 whatever plus or something like that, and it was hard, and I watched him project that, and that was my first real experience of like seeing somebody with a goal in climbing and projecting and what that looked like, and like the intimacy that goes into projecting, and like learning every tiny micro thing and having everything line up to be perfect to be able to do it. And I liked that way more than on-site climbing. Yeah, I get really scared, and I like on-site climbing and whatever I just don't love. It just is like very scary for me, and like I'd way rather like get to know something and get comfortable on something. Like that's when I have a lot of fun. It's like I've been on this a lot and I know this terrain and trying to push myself. So I didn't really project until we went to Italy for the first time, and like got there and hopped on the route. And like I had climbed and tried to do some stuff in the Bingo Cave, but like I hadn't really trained for it. So it was like kind of just failing and never seeing progress. And like kind of was like, okay, well, I'll just come back to this after we do the Italy trip, because we just focused on training for the Italy trip, and then went to Italy and just got on the route and tried and progressed, and like saw the training pay off, and like have those like little revelations of like, oh, it's like, oh, well, if I try it this way. And then projecting the same route that like two other people were projecting, and we were doing the same route, but like completely different. And that was really cool to be like, it was like bouldering, where you're like sitting with these people and you're doing the same route, but you're like, well, try it this way. And what if you do it this way, but go with this hand and this leg? And that was cool to like have this collaborative experience with people at a crag that you don't do that ice climbing. Like you go out and it's fun and it's beautiful and you're like in the mountains, but it's cold and you're like really uncomfortable a lot of the time. And this wasn't that. I was like uncomfortable in the sense of like you get nervous, right? And you're like pushing yourself, but it's not uncomfortable because you're in the sense that you're like, I'm hanging out with people that I'm psyched to be here with. I'm like in Italy, I'm like watching the sheep herders move the sheep up and down the mountain in the day, and like people hiking is like a really wonderful thing to do. And I really liked that. Like it was fun to be in the same place for a long time. It was fun to be on a route for a long time. It was fun to collaborate with people. And that's when it hit me. I was like, I really like doing this. And I like ice climbing, but I really like projecting, especially when it's projecting with other people.
And what time of year?
The first time we went was in August, which was way too warm. It was like way too hot. And we'll never go back to try to do an August trip again. But from after that, now it's been in the fall, and the spring was our last trip, which I really enjoyed the spring.
So it's not winter. So we have to get that out of our minds.
Yeah. No. And I mean, like, it's still cold, but for me, like my hard kind of temp line, if I'm going to try hard, is like, it really, like if I'm going to try hard in the roof, it cannot be colder than like 32. Like 32 is kind of pushing it cold wise. Okay. Like really like 38, or if you're using Celsius, like between 4 and 7, perfect. Like really good. between 4 and 7. That's primo.
So, right. So your gloves are sticking and like.
Yeah, you're not getting hot on route.
Right.
Like you're staying cool.
With this sport, this is a big mental thing I've like still working on getting over. Is that you're out there with ice tools, but it's warm outside.
Mm-hmm.
So
and I mean, some people do this when it's really cold.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
just can't. I can't.
No, I'm just saying because
Yeah.
I've seen the videos where it's like you're in a t-shirt.
Yeah.
And it's summertime.
Yeah.
You know, I'm an old crusty. I'm like it sort of scrambles my brain, right? And these are pure rock roots.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's no more of this, like at the end, you have to like put your tool into a little tiny icicle.
No, I think, I was climbing the other day and I like hit an icicle on my way. I'm like, get out of my way. I need the rock.
I know that feeling.
Yeah.
So tell me about these highlights of these trips to this cave, which is the Tomorrow World. Tom Ballard, it sounds like he was the guy that spearheaded the development there. An alpinist, English alpinist, right? Or British alpinist that where did die on K2?
I don't remember what specific mountain it was, but he died.
It wasn't that long
on
ago.
a big mountain.
Right.
Yeah, passed away.
Right. So it's like this mecca.
Yeah.
Right.
For dry toolers.
For this like pure dry tooling.
Yeah.
Nastiness.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really awesome place. Yeah. So Tom
like
Ballard.
An outdoor gym for this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He saw it. He had the vision and he brought it to life. And what's really cool about it is like you pass really hard sport climbs on the way.
Right.
And like during the year, like last year when we were there in the spring, my husband and I, we'd go up every single day to the cave and it would be just us. But there was also these sport climbers that were projecting too. So it would be like us and these sport climbers that they'd go to their route and we'd go to our route and we'd see each other just down the way every day. And we never met each other, but we were on this like same route journey of like projecting together. So it's a much more like cohesive acceptance between rock climbers and dry toolers there, which is fun. But yeah, the cave is a incredibly spiritual place in the sense that Tom is no longer with us. And so you get to go there and you get to experience Tom and like his vision and what he wanted to give back to the world, especially because it's like one of the caves where it doesn't matter if you are a Unira climber or a DTS climber, like this cave is open to all. And there's another climber who put up Parallel World, Derek Sokolowski, who's a DTS climber, who's also established routes in there. But because that cave was established by Tom, like that is a place where everybody can come and everybody can climb, and you feel that when you're there. Plus it's just a beautiful place to be. It's a fun place to be. And it's like an exceptional cave. You're like in there and you're like, this is crazy. It's huge and awesome.
So is Parallel World a current project for you, or did you send it?
I did it.
Okay.
Yeah, March 18th last year. So almost a year ago.
Okay. Yeah, because I was sampling media from different eras, and so I couldn't quite catch up. So tell me about that particular climb, because that sounds like the hardest one you did, and that's like I said, it's one of the things that there is interest in terms of your career.
Yeah.
From other people.
Yeah, that's like the only thing people have cared about.
I care about other things.
No, you do.
I care about your horse.
Yeah, we're talking about this, but
I care
that's
about
like
your horse.
Yeah, you do.
I know.
Yeah, Parallel World was established by Derek Sokolowski, I think, in 2018, and it was the first proposed D16 in the world, which is hard. You know, D16 is hard. So it has been a highly, I don't know, like all hard routes, like it gets downgraded and people try it and do different things and people talk about it. And maybe like somebody kind of has a bad rep and so people don't really like each other. And so they do this or whatever, you know, like there's like
all the things.
There's the drama.
Like yeah.
The parallels between dry tooling and rock climbing are astounding. Like it's all just the same history.
It's the same. We're just
dry
climbers.
tooling is just what rock climbing was
Right.
30, 40 years ago.
Right. Yeah, it's a little more minutiae that they're arguing about.
Exactly.
We've kind of settled some stuff in rock climbing.
Yeah, it's progressed, and now we're just reliving that in a more.
And it's all shit now.
Yeah, it's terrible.
It's all just useless shit now because there's no more rules.
Bring
no one
back
cares.
The rules and the drama. I want the drama.
You better hang your draws, mister. Doesn't count if you don't hang your draws.
Chop the bolts.
Exactly.
That still happens, but whatever. Anyways, so it was climbed, it was proposed, and then it was downgraded, and it was given a 15 plus. But it was like, well, it was given a 15 plus because they did it in Yaniro, and the first person did it in DTS, blah, 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 because it was established by Derek, who's purely hardcore DTS climber. And it was repeated only by Yaniro climbers and given the grade of 15 plus for however many years, and all by men. And then the first person to repeat it in DTS gave it a D16. So
it went back up.
It went back up. And so anyways, I had been to the cave for...
And this is the top.
Yes, it's the top.
Like there's not D18s.
No.
Okay.
There's not. Now there's a D16 plus.
All right.
Yeah.
But regardless, we're right up here in the
we're
top,
we're at the tippy top.
We're in the V17 of.
Yeah, this is hard.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, anyways, I had gone in, I don't remember, 2021, and then or 2022, and then I'd gone in 2023, and like I did the 13. And then I did the 14. And then I did the 15. And when I did the 15, it was the first North American woman to climb.
The line above the sky?
Yeah.
Is that okay, yeah.
First North American woman to do 14. First North American woman to do 15. I was like, all right. And
but are there lots of like Euro women doing that grade? Or, I mean, it's pretty...
14, yeah. And then I was the fourth woman in the world to do 15.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So not
Sick.
when it comes to the 15.
Right.
Okay. But lots of women
Sick.
have done the 14. So I was pumped, right? I was like, and I wanted people to care when I did the 15. I was like, this is fucking sweet. I did this. And then nobody cared, right? Nobody cared. And I was pissed off.
Sorry.
No, it's funny.
If I'd have known, I would have cared. How's that?
That's it. Nobody knew. But I had like I had tried to reach out to like a few like magazines,
right.
and like had gotten an email back of like, this is too big for us. Try contacting so-and-so at so-and-so magazine.
Huh.
You know, like was the response I was
Right.
getting. But then nobody was saying anything about it. And I was like, I feel like people should care. And then I was pissed off about it. And I made these stickers that said, nobody gives a fuck about dry tooling, you know, which was a quote from somebody in Canada and blah, blah. It was like me being angsty about it, right? And being angry about this thing that I had done that nobody cared about. Because I really cared about it. And I wanted people to care about it too.
Okay.
So...
I swear I would have cared if I'd known.
It's okay. I mean, I get it though. What the frustrating thing is, I understand.
Right.
I understand why people don't care. That doesn't take
don't
away
know.
that. Yeah, people don't
They're
know.
gonna care now.
But also, people are like, it's dry tooling.
Yeah.
You know,
There-
this is
it
a
is a
sport
little bit of
that
there's a
people
prejudice.
makes people angry.
Yeah.
Like, so if either people don't want to touch it because they're like, I don't want to cause a thing, or like that's why a lot of people don't report on it and stuff, is because it causes arguments, which in this day and age you'd think people would be like, rage bait, let's go, you know. So they didn't touch it, and so that happened, and I was like, well, I guess what I'll do is go do the next thing. Like, if they don't care about me climbing line, then I guess I'll go try parallel world. And at the time, no woman had climbed the next grade, whether it's 15 plus or 16. Okay. So, and I had watched Kevin try to do some of the moves on parallel world, like in the flesh. Like I'd seen him do a couple of moves. I was like, but he was skipping a hold. It was called the crumbly ledge. And everybody else had used the crumbly ledge. Okay.
Gotcha.
Yeah. The crossover for like hard rock climbing is real. Like we have the names for the holds and whatever. So I knew that hold was there, but I was like, I'll use the crumbly ledge. Everybody else uses the crumbly ledge, whatever. And I'd watched video of people climbing it. So I was training specifically for this video. And then I'd gone to the route. And that summer, Derek Sokolowski, the first ascensionist, had come back in, or not summer, but the spring before the DTS climber had repeated it. He had filled holds on the route that people had found since the first climb, or like first ascension of it, first ascent of it. So all of a sudden the route was harder. Like I'd gone up there and I was like looking at these holds and I'm like, that's filled with like hard epoxy. The crumbly ledge is filled with hard epoxy, but everybody else got to use the crumbly ledge. You know, it's like, I was pissed. I was like, it's frustrating to be here and had watched videos of people climbing it and having watched people get to use the hold that now I was forced to not be able to use. So anyways, it was, I got my ass handed to me. It was hard as hell and I was not strong enough to do it. I was there for 8 weeks trying to do the thing and I couldn't link the 2 crux moves on the route the first trip. And so went home, set all the routes in the cave, and I bailed on all the ice festivals I was supposed to go to. I was supposed to go to Valdez. I was supposed to go here. Called up Bill and I was like, I'm not going to make it. Like, I got to go back to Italy. And I trained and then I went back a year ago from right now to go do it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so you now are doing a move that felt much longer. Was kind of the issue without the crumbly ledge.
Yeah, exactly. And it wasn't just a crumbly. So it went from a 4 move, or I have to think about it. It says 1, it would have been 1, 2, 3, 4. It went from a 5 move sequence to a 2 or a 3 move sequence.
Okay.
So it made, 5 easy moves or 3 easy moves or 4 easy moves until 2 huge ginormous moves that were at my like full max.
Right. And you're 5'6" with like a +2.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you did it.
I did it. Yeah. I was able to do it. Got the moves after having come home and like trained hard for 3 months, but very specifically for those moves. Yeah.
Well, tell me about that. Like, you have to not just do it's just like rock climbing. It's probably low percentage and you have to do it after climbing up there.
Yeah.
Where was it on the route, these moves?
You climb a full D10 to get there, which is hard in itself and like slightly overhung in the whole thing. And then so it was about halfway through the route, which it's a full, so it's a full 70 to get from the very beginning all the way to the end and lower. Takes a full 70. And it's like 3/4 of a 70 is the route. And then it's 1/3 to get down or 1/4 to get down. Anyways, it doesn't matter. It's long. It's halfway through the route is the cruxes. 1/3 of the way through the roof is the cruxes. But the first third of the roof is like big move, big move, big move, big move, big move. It's just like hammers you hard all the way there. But right before the 2 cruxes, you get an okay rest for me. It's like you get feet on, but for me, the feet were like pretty far out in front of me. So I was like I was like pretty strained to like get a good rest. Whereas like, I think if you're taller, it would be a better rest. So you rest there and then you have like these 2 fat moves right after that rest. And they're super hard, but it's a fair amount of climbing to get there. But the hardest thing is it's hard to project them because you have to be able, it's like 100 feet in the air, that roof. And so to be able to get up into the roof and get to those moves is a ton of work. And then God forbid you drop your tool when you're up there and you're fucked. And then you're like, great, I just took all this energy to get up here and now for me to go get my tool. And it was just like, if you're with a group of people, you could like go in direct to the bolts and then you could pull the rope through and then you could drop the rope and then pull the tool back up. But in this scenario, either you call it a day or you lower back down and you grab the tool and you jug the line all the way back up and then you go in direct, you pull the rope and then you tie back in and you try again. Or you go all the way down and then you reclimb the whole entire thing, go bolt to bolt until you get there. Right? And it's a ton of work to project.
Tell me about sending it.
Yeah. So when I came back the second time, I was in a way better headspace. I think the first time I was like kind of being like, oh, I'm going to be quiet about it. And I'm not going to tell people what I'm trying to do because I was a little afraid of somebody else doing it first. And so I was trying to keep quiet about it. And that put way too much pressure on me. I was like, I just need to be real and legit.
The game and
I was playing the game and I shouldn't be playing the game.
Right.
Just be real and whatever. So when I came back, I was honest. I'd done the podcast with Ice Ice Beta. I'd like released to the dry tooling world that I was projecting this thing.
All 7 of them.
I know,
They
fuck,
were
dude.
aware.
It doesn't matter, but it matters to me. But in the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. But yeah, so I'd come back. I was in a way better headspace, and I was way stronger. And like those crux moves went down really fast.
Nice.
Yeah, it was still work.
Yeah.
And I had to dial it in, but I was able to smash the route pretty fast after like being home and just doing those moves over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, and doing nothing but those moves and projecting at home. I mean, setting those moves and just working the movement as much as I could to dial it in, but then also doing that movement 20 minutes into a burn, right? It wasn't just like, it was like first dialing in that movement, and then it was projecting the route of like, okay, I'm going to get to this at 20 minutes and I'm going to have a shitty rest before, and then I'm going to do the move kind of thing. It's just what you would do while you're projecting and rock climbing kind of thing. And then it's like setting the route slightly harder than it is in real life is what worked really well for me. And then when I got there, it was like kind of a, whew, you know, because in real life, the route maybe was slightly easier than what I had set at home, but it was harder in the sense you have the exposure. You're like way up in the air, the risk of falling. You also have the clipping, everything else that goes into being on route. But climbing, it was just like, it was, I mean, I don't know. As a climber, maybe you can relate to this and maybe you can't, but like, I feel like we all kind of have like a moment that like a route that sticks with you. And Parallel World was the first route I had ever done that pushed me to be better. It like really pushed me to be like, not only did it push me to be stronger, but it pushed me to like, stop fucking playing the stupid game. Like, don't be quiet about it. Like, you're doing this. Like, what do you need to do mentally to like get this done? Like, it was really hard for me. It was a really big mental project. I had like mega breakdowns. And I'm not like, when I'm climbing, like, I'm not a screamer. I'm not going to yell and curse and throw my tools. Like, I don't want to do that.
Seems
like,
dangerous to throw your
yeah,
tools, by the way.
People do though, you know, whatever. But it's
throw
like
golf clubs too.
Yeah, exactly. But I remember very specifically in the fall on the first trip, like having a day where I was just like I'd gotten up to the crux move, tried to do it, immediately fell, immediately dropped my tool into the talus 100 feet below, and just had like a complete like blew up, cursing, screaming, yelling. Oh my fucking God, what the hell? You know, just so angry, came down and just like tears. And it was just this huge release of all this pressure I'd put on myself. Like I just exploded, just completely exploded. And that was a moment of like, I'm doing something wrong. Like if I'm having this type of outburst, explosion mentally, I'm doing something wrong. Like this shouldn't be my process. Like I'm allowed to be frustrated. I'm allowed to do these things, but I'm not allowed to like bottle this up. And that's what I was doing. And so it was like, it was a process of me kind of learning how, cause it really was the first route that I've done that like really pushed me. That was like, I was like at my limit to do this thing, and it pushed me to be better in all ways. So when I finally got to the anchor on the thing, it was like a moment of like, so funny. Cause obviously I was stoked, but you're like, when you try that hard, at least when I try that hard, it's like you're like full of so much, you're like so tired, and you're so in the moment for me of like calm and flow state. Like I really had to like put myself in this, like I am calm, I am breathing, I am present, I'm calm, like I'm here, I'm capable, like saying all the mantras, all the things to myself that like when I got to the anchor, I almost couldn't have this like big explosion of excitement because I had mentally put myself in such a calm place. But I did have a moment of like, someday I literally thought to myself at the end, I was like, someday I'm going to be a little old lady sitting in the chair, looking back at this and being like, this is a highlight of my life. That was what I thought about. I was like, at the anchor, I was like, this was a moment. You have those moments in life. That was it. That was one of those moments for me. And that really meant a lot. I was like, to recognize that in that moment and then be super thankful to like look back at the route and be like, I just closed the book. I just closed the book on this project. And that's what makes a good book is not the very last sentence of the book or closing, whatever. What makes a good book is the story that gets you through all the way to the end. And like that, it's like, that's what's so cool about it. was to recognize that moment and like everything that parallel world gave me and pushed me to be better in like all ways as a climber, but also everything I learned from it.
Did you get the recognition that
Yeah,
you
I did.
Okay, good.
Yeah. People were psyched about that send.
Right on.
Yeah. People recognized it for what what it was. A woman climbing the grade for the first time. I was psyched about that because I wanted people to care. But, I look back at Line, and as much as Line was awesome and exciting, Line did not change me that like Parallel World did. So I think if I didn't end up getting the recognition that I wanted from Parallel World, I think I still would feel a lot more content and like I got something that I wanted to get out of Parallel World. Right. Like it was such a different experience climbing that than it was Line.
So we passed over like a little bit about the shenanigans of the original Parallel World and then the Climb Parallel World and then the filling of the holes.
Yeah.
Which there is some of that in rock climbing, but it's usually, it's a first ascensionist thing. Sometimes people will knock off holds to keep it hard while they're doing it. But, and then like if stuff gets drilled later, it gets filled in.
Of course.
But that was like kind of an interesting thing that I read about with this, that because other people had found other ways to do it, this person went back and went, no.
Yes.
You have to do it the way I did it.
Correct.
And maybe that fits in because these routes are fairly, at least in this cave, are fairly manufactured to begin with.
Right.
So you've sort of built it like a gym climb in a way. And, so it's sort of like using, an orange hold when you're supposed to just be on the yellow holds.
Mm-hmm.
But I know you were actually pissed off when you first found out about this, or you went up there and you're like, where's the crumbly ledge?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Mm-hmm.
But what's your attitude now in terms of what it changed for you to do the route?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Like you said, a lot of the routes specifically in this cave in Italy are enhanced is a better word, I feel like, because they're not just finding like a flat piece of limestone and just drilling right into it. Oftentimes it's like, there's already a pocket here, right? And it's like drilling a little bit into the pocket. But with that being said, like I'm not beating around the bush of like the more you climb on these holds, the bigger the holds get, or they break or whatever, right? Like that's an obvious fact to it. But with that being said, yeah, it's like the first ascensionist didn't see the crumbly ledge, or he didn't see that tiny like dime sized natural pocket that was was in the middle of the two, or the big Gaston move. He didn't see those. But the guy who went and climbed it right after him did. And he used the crumbly ledge on that ascent. And it was there. And it was a natural ledge. And he used it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So I think the part that was really frustrating about it was to show up and have, a hold broke. Like there was a hold broken between the Gaston move. And the crumbly ledge was filled. And there was 2 pockets filled on the D10 that were natural in there and that people had used and whatever, right? Like it was frustrating for me to show up as the first woman who was doing it and like be like, well, all the dudes got this. All the dudes got the extra holds. Right. And I'm being forced not to use them.
Right.
And in hindsight, I'm like, it's cool having done it to be like, yeah, I did it the harder way or whatever. I did it using, I was forced to not use those holds. With that being said, I would have absolutely used those holds if they were there. 100% I would have used those. Yeah. But in hindsight, it's like cool to have done it without him or having done it the OG way. But I think the thing that was the most frustrating about it was I felt like I had to fight a little bit for my seat at the table when it came to the grade, because the first ascension, it gave it a D16 and then it was downgraded to 15 plus. And I had climbed almost all of my hard routes have been in this cave. So I'd climbed the 13, I'd climbed the 14, I'd climbed the 14 plus, I'd climbed the 15 minus, I've climbed the 15. Like I really felt like I had an idea of what the progression felt like specifically in this cave. And Parallel World felt like the absolute hardest jump in that cave compared to everything else. And to me, I felt like it warranted a 16, and at the time, now I feel it, my confident or like my grade for the route is 16 minus is how I feel like it is. But at the time I was like, this is fucked up. Like, it's really frustrating for me to be here and feel like I'm getting backed into the corner of like 15 plus when I don't really feel like it's that. it feels like a higher jump than that to me. And I felt like I had to fight for myself to like put that grade out there. And also like, you know, it kind of gotten word of mouth, like that people were like, well, yeah, but like, you know, but Quan did it. And, you know, Young He, who did the second ascent, is an incredible climber, and he like on-sighted the thing, like insane. So it's like, hell yeah, like if he thinks it's a 15 plus, like that probably makes a lot of sense. Like that's probably spot on. But also like trying to like trust my gut on that. So there was anger because I felt like I was being forced to say something. Nobody was forcing me, but I felt like I was being forced to say something about the grade because others had said that before me. But I also didn't really feel like people were going to take me seriously when I said what I thought the grade was. And then I was frustrated that, well, I feel like, you know, nobody else, you know, I can't speak for everybody, but the videos I've seen is like people have used those 2 holds. And I know that like using those 2 holds does make that easier. And so it's whatever. It just was frustrating to be like, I don't feel like I can fully compare with other people because it's different. And there was just like kind of micro moments of like I was at the crag with, you know, the first ascensionist, and like somebody had made a comment of like, well, you know, it's okay you did it with 4-9 because you are a woman. You know, it was like these little micro things of aggression, you know, like micro moments. And it just, every time I was there, I was like, fuck, like I want to do this and I want to be able to like say these things and have people believe me, you know, and it's not just because I did it in this style or just because I did it like this or because the holds are like this. Like I want to be here and I want to be like respected or like, you know, and have that mean something. So there was a lot of feelings that went with this climb that wasn't just doing the thing, you know, there's a lot of learning and experiences and everything that went with it, including holds being filled and pockets being filled and me being up there by myself and being like, what the fuck? No, you gotta be kidding me.
That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, cause I again, you discussed some of this stuff, on that podcast, but that was before you'd done it.
Yeah, exactly.
And so it's interesting to hear the after story, and you're a little more firm now in talking about it than you were at that point. Cause you were sort of in the middle of it, but yeah, it seems like there's like these growing pains going on with the sport that, as we've mentioned, may have gone on a little earlier in some of the other facets of climbing, but still go on. I mean, it all still goes on.
Absolutely.
But yeah, this has like, it sort of has this whole, Red River Gorge when, you know, Katie Brown was sending shit kind of like vibe to it.
Yeah.
Although there's a lot of misconceptions about her time there and what was really happening with the grades. But so, I mean, there can't be many of these routes, right? It's like we're talking about this tiny sport with these venues that, you know, are very specialized. Like, you guys have found these crags where you've like whatever negotiated or staked your flag, however it is that like this is where we can dry tool, because obviously we don't, you know, you don't want to be dry tooling and knocking holds off of famous rock climbs, which has happened in the past, but we've kind of worked that out. You know, there's that big thing in Uray, the Hall of Justice.
Yes.
Yeah. You know, we this is our choss. We're going to take it kind of a thing.
Yes. So
there can't be that many of them. It's like bouldering, right? There's like a handful of V17s. And if you want to climb that grade, you got to fly to Finland or whatever.
Exactly.
So how do you know, what do you find after this? I mean, you don't have to show your cards in terms of exactly what you're going to do, but like, what are your resources to try to do something even harder?
Yeah.
If that's in your,
no, I want to, I'd like to do the next thing for sure. I think, there, like you said, it's a small sport. There's not that many routes to go do it. And one of the frustrating things is there's just not enough people to be going and even doing the hard routes.
Yeah. Who was there for 8 weeks with you?
My husband.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He's like, full amazing support system.
We didn't even get to how you do that in terms of your lifestyle, but maybe we won't have time.
But yeah, he was there. But anyway, it's just these routes, there's not that many of them. They're hard to establish and you want to be careful because you don't want to cause more issues than there already is, kind of thing. So especially in the States, like the States are especially, you got to be really careful and mindful and thoughtful and about how you go about it. But so there's a confirmed D16 not that far from Parallel World and called Alethea, and I've done the first half of it. That's a 15, or it was originally 15, blah, blah, it doesn't matter. It's 15. Did the first half of it. I'd like to go back and finish the whole route. I'd like to do Alethea, which is a D16. And then Kevin's working on a crazy hard route in Bosnia. There's a 16 plus near Alethea in the same cave. So there's like a D15 plus, I think, in China. That would be really maybe a big adventure. Yeah, to like try to go do. There's a bunch of hard stuff in France that could be interesting, but it's hard DTS only.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not a DTS climber, and I'm not going to I've spent so much time training and being whatever as a Unero climber and being able to do both, but I don't necessarily want to put that much time into being DTS only.
Well, what happened to you if you went there and you were Uneroing it?
I think you'd get a lot of shit and none of
French, so
none of the sends would be counted, but I'd really love to go there. I'd really love to try these climbs, but I don't necessarily want to fight for it.
Right.
There's like so many other things to try to do and whatever that I, maybe later on in life, but I don't know.
What about in your hometown?
Yeah, there's the bingo cave at home, and I've been trying in like half-ass projecting this like 13 plus in the cave. It's like I'll go and be like, okay, I need to like put time in on this route, and I like practice the moves, and then I don't show up back for 6 months.
Why? What's the problem? Is highlight?
The problem is I just get busy doing other stuff, and I'm not committed enough.
You're not like on a specific trip.
Yeah, like you're like on a trip, you spend all this money, like you're there, and like you're specifically there for routes, so you can put all this time. But then when you're home, you're just like whatever. So it's like fun to go play on. But I'd really like to finish that 13 plus and just like take it off and get it finished. And there's a 14 minus in that cave too. I'd like to do, but it requires the pillar to be formed in the back, which is an actual mixed route.
Oh, okay.
That
would
would
be fun. You have to go then in the winter.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like got to be like warm enough because I can't do it if it's like above, it's below 32 degrees and whatever. So it's like kind of nuanced, and I just get busy doing other stuff. And like my husband and I, we want a family, and so it's like, okay, like how do I do kids, and like thinking about that, and like okay, but then what are my goal climbs like after having kids and whatever. There's a whole thing of stuff I'd like to do, but also general life that would be nice too. That I want to do too. So
yeah, how do you afford your rock and roll lifestyle?
Yeah, I'm an artist.
Yes.
So I make art out of old climbing rope. My business is called Highlight Designs. Little plug there. But I do graphic design and rope art.
Okay.
So in the past, I've done like I'll go home and I'll just make art, and then I put it all online, and it's like art's available at noon, and then I sell it. And then I sell it all, and then I go out and I go climbing for X amount of time, like make some money. And like my husband and I, for 2.5 years, we lived out of my Subaru Crosstrek.
Right.
And we bummed around on people's couches and saved money by not renting and being moochers for a while. And now we've recently just bought a house that's like an epic renovation project. It's like the only way you can afford a house in Bozeman if you're willing to go all the way down to the studs.
Yeah, but that's in the end, you'll be happy.
Yeah, exactly. But
yours.
So now it's like I'm doing more commission work. So I make art throughout the week, working with clients and making art for their house or making a logo, or I make programs for horse shows across the West Coast and whatever. So, and I specifically went to school to be a graphic designer so I could work for myself and work remotely and make my own schedule. So that's what I do. And my husband is right now is full-time working on the house, but he builds horse jumps. And that's how we met, was in the horse world. So yeah.
Do you imagine yourself ever going back to being a horse person?
I don't know. If I do, it's not in the way that I did before. I have this dream of like, because I used to work with like thoroughbreds, imported warm bloods, like high level athlete, specifically bred horses. And now in my head, I'm like, wow, it'd be really cool to like own a cute little Mustang that came off like BLM land and like go trail riding and like maybe go, do a event a couple times a year, or have it sit in the pasture and I go brush its mane and like hang out with the horse that way. Like that's, if I ever do horses, like that's how it would be. But I don't know how that fits into my life right now. It was really hard losing my horse, that like, I like to say, or I don't like to say it, but like I think when he left, like he took a little piece of my soul with me. So It's hard to imagine like giving myself to a horse in the same way again. And it's hard to imagine how, I don't know, like maybe that part of my life is closed. Maybe that book is finished and that's just how it is. And I get to go enjoy horses and whatever a couple times a year, but it's a little bit hard to imagine what it's going to be like again in the future. And I just have to trust that like it'll happen the way it's supposed to happen. So.
All right, folks, thanks for listening, and thanks to Katie for sitting down, coming over to the hotel room, getting that done, braving whatever upper respiratory thing I had. I warned her, but she didn't care. She's that tough. She's that fierce. Anyway, you can follow Katie on Instagram at Katie_Stylos. She's also over at highlight_designs, where she shows off her rope art. And these aren't just rugs, people. These are something else entirely. So go check out her art at highlightdesigns.com or on Instagram. She's also got an awesome YouTube channel. Lots of crazy footage of her doing all the stuff. The Yaniro stuff. So far outside my world. Fascinating to look at. And a quick correction. We just casually mentioned K2 in conjunction with the death of Tom Ballard. It was actually on Nanga Parbat with his partner Daniel Nardi. Fell or swept away in an avalanche. A very tragic story there. Some of you probably know that Tom was the son of Alison Hargreaves, who did in fact die while descending from K2. Okay, I'll just leave you with my normal advice. Don't forget to check your knots.
Is the dark side stronger?
No. But busier, more seductive.
But how am I to know the good side from the bad?
You will know.